Thank you so much for coming along this evening. Thank you to the organisers for organising this event. It's really important that we have the opportunity to talk to all of you about who we are, what we do, and why we have put ourselves forward to stand. I'll be honest with you, I was invited along to the film at the Charles Cryer in Carshalton on Saturday morning, Revolution of Our Time. I was deeply, deeply shocked. And I think that really made me understand how much we take for granted in this country. We have an election, we turn up, we put our cross on the ballot paper. It's normal, everyday business. Seeing that film has made me understand just how precious and how fragile democracy can be. So I feel very privileged to be here as leader of the council, but I also feel very honoured that you've all chosen to make Sutton your home. I'm absolutely delighted as I go around knocking on doors, meeting so many of you, and you've told me how welcoming Sutton is as a community, and that makes me feel very proud. So I've been asked to say a little bit about what the council does and what it means to be the leader of the council, and then towards the end I'll talk a little bit about my party as well. A lot of people in this country, people who have lived here all their lives, don't really understand the difference between the different tiers of government. So this is a London borough. The London Borough of Sutton goes from Worcester Park, Cheam, Sutton, Beddington, Carshalton and Wallington, about 205,000 people. And we have our own budget, we make our decisions about how we're going to spend that budget, and we run about 800 different services across the borough. Many of those services you will probably never need, because 70% of my budget goes on care for the elderly, care for the vulnerable, care for people with learning disabilities, and care for children with special needs. So 70% of my budget goes on looking after people who need the most help, which leaves 30% for everything else. And I made a list. I promise I won't go through the whole thing. But if you think that that 30% covers roads, parks, libraries, pavements, streetlights, refuse collection, recycling, licensing applications, planning applications, tackling climate change, working with the police to keep crime rates the lowest in London, very proud of this, and working with the local NHS to help keep people healthy, and a lot more as well. So we are in charge of a lot of services that make a real difference to the lives of people living in this borough. Some of those services you'll see every day, when your refuse is collected, when your grass verges are cut. Some of them you'll only see when you need help. It's a bit like you pay your income tax, which pays for the cost of the hospitals in the hope that you'll never need a hospital. You pay your council tax to cover services that help some of the most vulnerable people living in the borough. And one of the things I'm particularly proud of on our borough is the standard of education and the schools that we have here. And I know that many of you have chosen to come to Sutton because of the excellent reputation of our schools. Up until recently, the council worked very closely with schools, but over the last few years, with the setting up of academies and multi-academy trusts, the influence of the council on schools has reduced, but that doesn't mean that we're not part of the partnership working, because we're very proud in Sutton of how strong that partnership is. We have a partnership of our primary schools, partnership of our secondary schools, and the council helps schools when they're struggling, ensures that that partnership is strong, because there are times for all sorts of different reasons that a school may be finding things a bit more difficult, particularly during COVID, when many members of staff were off because they had the COVID infection. So the council's able to help the schools work together, learn from the best, learn from good practice, and ensure that we have a really high standard of education in this country. And I'm really proud of that, because I know you'll agree with me. We want everyone to have the best possible start in life, and that's why education is so very important. But equally important is jobs. I know that some of you have come over thinking about setting up your own businesses, which is absolutely great. And we've put you in touch with our business development officers at the council to talk about the fact, do you really want to set up your business in central London and pay rents, which are quite high? Why don't you think about setting up your businesses in Sutton? Over the years, before the COVID pandemic hit, we started to buy up parts of the high street to make sure that the retail on the ground floor were shops that people liked and were interested in. But on the first and second floor, we're using that space for start-up and entrepreneurs. And I know that some of you are interested in renting that space. We want good jobs in Sutton for Sutton people. We don't want Sutton to be a dormitory town where it's lovely to bring up your children, beautiful parks, low crime, lovely welcoming atmosphere, but then you have to go somewhere else to work. And one of the most important projects that we're doing at the moment is the London Cancer Hub. So down in the south of the borough in Belmont, we're very fortunate to have one of the most famous cancer hospitals in the world called the Royal Marsden. Right next door is the Institute of Cancer Research, which is one of the top cancer research institutions in the world. It's one of the top 5, and the other 4 are all in the United States. So we already have a cancer hub in the borough, a hospital and a research centre, who are doing wonderful things to find new drugs to tackle cancer and new ways of helping people who have had cancer. The council is now in partnership with both the Institute for Cancer Research and the Marsden, and we're developing a hub that's going to be one of the most important cancer research and diagnosis centres in the world, and that will bring 13,000 new jobs into the borough. So I know I can't go on for too long. I could talk for hours, and I promised I wouldn't. But education, skills and jobs for me is absolutely at the key, at the core of everything that we do. And the council has an important role to make sure that our children get good education, our young people have the skills to get good jobs, and that those jobs are available in the community. I've been asked to say just a few words about my party and the values. As has been said, I'm a Liberal Democrat. The Liberal Democrats have been running Sutton Council since 1986. And as Ben said, I became a councillor in 2002, and I've been leader of the council for the last 10 years. And if you ask me what are the values and principles of my party that we hold most dear, I would say the starting point is to recognise the deep inequalities that exist within our society, and the importance of education and work in order to give everyone the opportunity to do well in life and to prosper. We know that people start from an unequal place for all sorts of different reasons and through no fault of their own. And we believe that the state, society, the council has a duty of care to ensure that people who need support get that extra support. But as a party, we are also fiercely passionate about individual freedoms and human rights. And while I could talk to you about the international situation, the terrible things happening in Hong Kong, the terrible things happening in Ukraine, I thought I'd focus on what that means here in Sutton. One of the things that we do here in Sutton that makes us very different from other London boroughs is that we spend a lot of resources, a lot of staff time and a lot of money ensuring that people are able to remain independent in their own homes. And we do that in lots of different ways. We're one of only 3 London boroughs now that provides Meals on Wheels. So a subsidised hot meal for people who are unable to cook for themselves means that they are able to remain in their own homes because they're receiving a hot, nutritious meal. And we also have specialised nurses who work for the council who are specialised in dementia or are specialised in helping people when they're discharged from hospital. And that means people who are vulnerable get that extra help that they need so they can carry on living independent lives. So I'd just like to finish by saying how very proud I am that you've chosen to come to Sutton, that you've chosen to make Sutton your home. I know that from speaking to many of you, you're telling me that you found Sutton to be a welcoming place. If you were here last summer, I hope you came along to Beddington Park, where I had the great honour of opening the Friendship Festival, and we're planning on doing it again this summer. An opportunity for everyone to come together. There were about 1,000 people there, Ben, not just people from Hong Kong, but from the local community as well. And it was a wonderful opportunity to get to know each other. We want to learn from you. We want to learn from your heritage. I was delighted again to speak at the Lunar New Year festivities that we had at Whitehall in Cheam. We can learn so much from each other. We all have a rich and fascinating heritage, and I believe that coming together, living together, understanding each other and valuing and respecting each other will make for a stronger and a better society. Thank you.